A mochi moment from Mark, who writes, I just want to thank you for making GLP-1s affordable. What would have been over $1,000 a month is just $99 a month with Mochi. Money shouldn't be a barrier to healthy weight. 3 months in, and I have smaller jeans and a bigger wallet. You're the best. Thanks, Mark. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Mark is a Mochi member compensated for his story.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or dsw.com today and let us surprise you.
Voices for Justice is a podcast that uses adult language and discusses sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including violence, abuse, and murder. This podcast may not be appropriate for younger audiences. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Some names have been changed or omitted per their request or for safety purposes. Listener discretion is advised.
My name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. Today, I'm discussing the case of Amber Hoopes. In the days following September 11th, 2001, like most Americans, Audra Bergner was with her family in Idaho Falls, Idaho, watching the coverage of the attacks. She was with her parents, Kathleen and Norris, as well as her niece, 20-year-old Amber Hoopes. In that moment, Audra told Amber, "I don't know what I would do if you ever went missing." And not long after that, she got a 4 a.m. phone call from her mother saying exactly that. Amber was missing. This is the case of Amber Hoopes. At 10:35 p.m. on Thursday, September 13th, 2001, Kathleen Bergner told her granddaughter Amber goodnight for the last time. Amber was in her room, lying on the floor watching TV and reading a magazine. And it didn't seem like she had any plans to go out. Aside from Amber being known as pretty shy and overall a homebody, she was also dressed for bed. She was wearing a white t-shirt, gray boxer shorts, and her knee-length terry cloth robe. But at this point, nothing seems out of the ordinary, so Kathleen just goes to bed as usual. When she wakes up around 1 a.m. to use the restroom, she sees that Amber still seems to be awake. Their rooms were separated by the bathroom, so she can't really help but notice. And it wasn't out of the ordinary for Amber. She's young, she stays up late. So Kathleen pops her head in to check on Amber. Maybe just to see what she's doing and say goodnight again. The light and TV were on in Amber's room, and the door was slightly cracked. So she opens the door expecting to see Amber in bed, but she's not there. Kathleen also notices that some lights in the house were on that weren't on when she went to bed a few hours earlier. She distinctly remembers turning off all the lights in the house as she did every single night. So she figures that was Amber. But when she goes to check, Amber isn't anywhere in the house. So she checks the next place she thinks she might be. Next to the family home is the family business, an auto body shop. It's literally directly right next to their home, just separated by a sidewalk. And Kathleen noticed that the light along the sidewalk to the shop was on. And when she gets closer, she also sees that the light in the office is on. All good signs at this point. And it may seem late, but it wasn't abnormal for Amber to use the computer in the office late at night. She would often download music and had some international pen pals that she enjoyed talking to over email. She was also known to occasionally use the exercise equipment or tanning bed that they had stored there. So she assumes that Amber is doing one of those things. But when she gets into the shop, Amber isn't there either. This is when Kathleen realizes that something is seriously wrong. So she goes back to the house and wakes up her husband Norris to tell him that she can't find Amber anywhere. Now, when Norris takes a look around, he notices something else. He sees that one of their red and white shop trucks was also missing from its parking spot inside the overhead door. And not just that. It was taken in a way that gives this family some clues. According to an interview that Audra gave to Nate Eaton with the East Idaho News, there were only 2 ways in and out of the shop, and the way the truck was taken needed to be accessed by someone with a key. Here's Audra.
And he came out, and he was the one that noticed the shop truck was gone, because they're all parked in there nice and tidy, and it was right inside the door, the overhead door. So there's only one specific way to get out, because, there's 2, but you've got to have a key for the front, the great big gate. And the only persons that have that key is the owner of the shop, my dad, and the record driver. So you had to have worked there or been a family member to know that you go around back through the field and out through the end. It's about 2-block distance, and you go out on Lincoln Road.
And is that the way the truck was taken out?
Yes. And then it was wet. It had rained a little bit. So there were marks going the other direction to the right.
So basically, whoever took the truck was either someone in the family or someone who worked at the shop. And they also had a good idea of which direction the truck went due to the muddy terrain. Now, unlike Amber being up late and possibly using the computer, taking the truck and leaving in the middle of the night without telling her grandparents would be extremely out of character. But there's also a phone in the truck, so they decide to give it a call and see if maybe Amber or someone else answers. Debbie Bryce for the Idaho State Journal describes this as a bag phone. Basically, it was a large cell phone that was corded to a receiver and typically stored inside of a bag, hence the name bag phone. I'll admit that I've never seen or used one of these, but in my research I found that they weren't totally uncommon for people in rural areas or truckers and boaters. So basically, it's a cell phone with better service than your typical Nokia brick that was pretty common in 2001. Either way, they call and there's no answer. They also call around to family members to see if maybe she's with them, or even just contacted them. If maybe there was some emergency that Amber went to help with, or just something. But no one they speak with has seen Amber either. So from here, they report her missing to the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office. Sergeant Brian Lovell is the one who takes the call. He was working the night shift and got to the scene at about 2 a.m. He speaks with Kathleen and Norris to gather as much information as he can. There's no runaway note, there doesn't appear to be any signs of foul play in the home, there's nothing missing. There's really just nothing to indicate what may have happened. They just know that Amber was gone. But according to Audra, the sheriff's office believes that it was Amber who took the truck, still in her pajamas and a pair of sandals she used to walk to and from the shop. Ultimately, they believe that Amber was probably just fooling around and would return. Here is Sergeant Lovell also talking to Nate Eaton from the East Idaho News.
You're initially thinking, did she take off on her own? She's 20 years old and, she could take off on her own if she wanted to. It wasn't like a juvenile runaway type of thing. But we're trying to dig into who does she know? Who's her friends? Is this something that she would normally do? Sneak out at night or anything like that? And there was none of that.
But Audra says her family not only immediately suspected that Amber was in danger, but also had a good idea of exactly who may have taken her.
So they called the police after looking and calling the family, and they were kind enough to come out, but they really did. They thought Amber was just fooling around, she stole the shop truck, she'll come back, not to worry, she just is having fun with some friends, and we just knew that wasn't the case. In fact, we all had a suspicion of who took her. I say that because probably about 3 months before Amber was abducted, there was an employee at the shop that left. I don't remember if he was fired or if he just left on his own, but he did not get along with my dad. My dad didn't get along with him. And he went and sold the Mac Tool stuff in the Mac Tool truck. And he came to the shop to sell the tools, and Dad asked him to leave and not to ever come back. So Mark said, I will make it my lifelong vendetta to ruin you.
This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Chewy. If you have pets, you probably know about Chewy, and you also know that when they say that they have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, they're not messing around. To keep them happy, Chewy has over 100,000 products from all the brands my pets love at prices I love. To keep them healthy, Chewy offers pet prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're even rolling out vet clinics across the country. I've been shopping with them for a very long time. And in addition to the auto-ship feature that gets the dog's food to them every single month, I also love to experiment with different treats. But I'm a bit picky. For me, it has to be high quality with simple ingredients. I recently picked up treats from Shepherd Boy Farms that are 100% just chicken breast. Popcorn and Heber are already obsessed. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewpanions.chewy.com/SarahETurney. That's chewpanions.chewy.com/SarahETurney to save $20 on your first order with free shipping. chewpanions.chewy.com/SarahETurney. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
It's a tale as old as time in true crime. A panicked family tries to reiterate the urgency of their young loved one being gone, that this is completely out of character for them, while law enforcement argues that they're probably just off having fun. It's honestly always really hard for me to hear. Audra's described Amber as being extremely shy, to the point that she wouldn't even go to the store by herself. She loved her family, she loved kids, and she worked as a nanny for a couple in Idaho Falls. Her best friend was her little sister. They spoke the night that Amber went missing, and she doesn't report anything out of the ordinary. So the idea of Amber just up and leaving, let alone stealing a vehicle from her family to go on some type of joyride, just didn't align with her character at all. But I will say that despite this initial belief that Amber was likely not in harm's way, the investigation still began rather quickly, and Sergeant Lovell calls for backup pretty much right away. And it's this other official, Deputy Al Thompson, as he's on his way to Amber's house, who ends up finding the shop truck about 30 minutes after Amber was reported missing. It was found over half a mile down the road at the corner of Ammon and Lincoln Roads. And it was clear that it had just been driven, because when he felt the hood, it was still warm. Now, back in 2001, there wasn't much in this area. According to Sergeant Lovell, there was a building that used to be a store and just a gravel parking lot. So while the possibility of there being any witnesses around was pretty slim, it did seem like they were close to hopefully finding Amber, or at least whoever stole the truck. Now, like I mentioned at the very top of this episode, Amber's Aunt Audra gets a call from her family at about 4 a.m. And I mean, no one is ever truly prepared for something like this. For the way these feelings, the stress and anxiety of a situation like this hits you. But she immediately takes action. While it was still dark, the first thought she had was to make flyers. It wasn't long before they had hundreds of people out searching for Amber. But there was no sign of her anywhere. Of course, while all of this is being done, authorities and Amber's family were analyzing the truck, and they discovered that it had gone much further than a half mile from the home where it was found. Here's Audra.
And there was dust lining over the truck, but the truck had been wiped down otherwise in the inside with fingerprints, so there were no fingerprints that were useful. Interesting enough, the shop truck was filled up with fuel the night before or the day before. So they kept the odometer readings, and there was a certain amount of miles put on the truck that no one from the family or the shop had done. So we searched in that direction, and then the vegetation that was found underneath the truck, a professor in Pocatello said that those vegetations only are in High Sierra and the Bone area.
By matching the mileage with the information they found about the vegetation under the truck, it seemed clear that it was driven to the High C area, which becomes the new focus of the search. But again, nothing related to Amber was found. Now, this entire time, in all of these searches for Amber, her family is screaming to the sheriff's office to investigate Keith Mark Hescock. This disgruntled man who literally told this family they would pay, that he would make it his lifelong vendetta to get this revenge. And the sheriff's office does eventually follow up. They speak with Hescock, but he denies any involvement in Amber's disappearance. He says he was home all night, and his family backs this up. It seems that he has an alibi. Now, of course, investigators look into other angles as well. Amber didn't have a cell phone, and she didn't have a boyfriend. They do look into her international pen pals that she liked to email, and they were able to confirm that she was using the computer that night. But according to Sergeant Lovell, they were not in the area when Amber went missing, especially with so many flights being canceled after the 9/11 attacks. So the idea of these people being in the area seemed very far-fetched to him, and they never found any evidence to indicate that they may have been involved in any way. He's actually discussed how all of these flights being grounded and the restrictions on flights made it harder to look for Amber. They were ultimately able to jump through some hoops to get some planes in the air to support these searches, but I thought it was a pretty unique aspect of her case that I wanted to share with you. Sergeant Lovell discusses how 9/11 was kind of this double-edged sword in Amber's case. It dominated the media. It made getting aerial support more difficult, but it also allowed them to eliminate these pen pals as potential suspects pretty early on. Now, the Deck podcast also interviewed one of the investigators on this case, who points to a possible suspect that I didn't see in traditional reporting, another employee of the auto body shop named Farron Poole. According to that reporting, he was a sex offender who lived a few miles away, and was someone who made advances towards Amber, but ultimately she refused to go out with him. I definitely encourage you to go listen to their episode on Amber. But basically, he lies to investigators about his whereabouts on the night Amber went missing. He fails a polygraph, but they also search his apartment and find nothing. In the end, they can't connect Poole to Amber's disappearance. And then, a few months later, something happened that led them right back to Keith Hescock. This episode of Voices for Justice is brought to you by Quince. I've been trying to be more intentional about what I wear each day. I'm leaning into pieces that feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together, and Quince has been my go-to. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are flattering, and everything just works without overthinking it. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra-soft denim. And the best part? Everything is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup. I recently just ordered their tiered linen dress, of course in black. I wanted to pair it with one of my favorite pairs of brown wedges. The problem was, I didn't have a brown purse, so I got that from Quince too. It's one of my favorite outfits. It's easy, effortless, and feels amazing, especially as we're getting a little bit warmer here in Phoenix. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/justice for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/justice for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/justice.
So good, so good, so good.
Everything you want for summer is at Nordstrom Rack stores now, and up to 60% off. Stock up and save on the brands you love like Vince, Sam Edelman, Frame, and Free People. Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
On the morning of June 2nd, 2002, the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office responded to the call of a missing 14-year-old who we'll call Jennifer. She lived off Highway 26 in a rural part of Idaho Falls. The night prior, she'd had a sleepover outside on her family's trampoline with her sister and possibly some other siblings. Reporting does differ here, but when they woke up, Jennifer was gone. According to reporting by Belinda Luscombe for Time, Jennifer had been taken by 42-year-old Keith Hescock. She'd been abducted at gunpoint as he threatened to harm her siblings. Then, Hescock took Jennifer to his home, chained her to his bed, and repeatedly assaulted her. According to reporting by the Idaho Statesman, Hescock told her that she was not his first victim. Hescock tried to call out of work the next day, but his boss basically forced him to come in. And this one little action, this one moment, this one person changed everything. When Hescock went to work, Jennifer found a fire extinguisher and began smashing it against the chain for several hours until it broke. And then she did something that I think is so brave and so smart. Before she left the house, she found an envelope with Hescock's name and address on it. From here, she ran to a phone, eventually made contact with her family, and was able to lead investigators back to the home and to Hescock. As deputies were at his home collecting evidence, Hescock got home from work, saw the authorities, and fled the scene. He was chased east of Idaho Falls and into the hills of the Grand Teton National Forest. But Hescock found himself trapped on a dead-end road in the area of Moody Meadows. Then he called his mom and left a voicemail saying he wasn't going back to prison. He'd previously served 2 years on burglary charges in Oregon. From here, Hescock got out of his vehicle, a K-9 unit was deployed on him, and he began shooting. The dog bit Hescock on his left forearm before he shot and killed it. Then he turned his gun to the other officers. He struck one officer in the right thigh, and Hescock was shot in the left forearm and shoulder. He then fell to the ground and turned the gun on himself. Shots were fired for a total of 4 seconds, resulting in 2 deaths and 1 injury. After this, Hescock's family was interviewed again, and here they admitted that they lied about his alibi for the night that Amber went missing. They said he came home, switched vehicles, and left. Many hours later, he returned with some firewood. As far as I could find, they never faced charges for interfering with the investigation. After his death, Hescock's home was searched for any evidence linking him to Amber or anyone else. They searched through 2 truckloads of movies, dirty clothing, computers, and a plethora of other items, but nothing was found. From here, Amber's case really went cold. It seemed that all they had was speculation and theories. Audra believes that Hescock likely came into the shop that night with the intention to steal tools. She's talked about how she was told that he knew the shop was often left unlocked, and she believes he'd stolen from her family in the past. So her theory seems to be that he came in that night, saw Amber, and took the opportunity to enact the vengeance he'd previously threatened. She also believes he likely held Amber for a period of time before killing her, similar to Jennifer. And we know through Jennifer's statements that Hescock told her that she was not his first victim. But Audra and many others believe that that may have not just been Amber, that he may have also been responsible for the 1993 disappearance of Stephanie Crane near Challis, Idaho. I covered her case last year in episode 182. But as a brief refresher, she was 9 years old when she was last seen on October 11, 1993, between Challis High School and the Challis Lanes bowling alley on Highway 93. Her case remains unsolved. But here's Audra.
He worked for my mom and dad's business, and his truck was the same color and design as the truck that the people saw up there at the time by the bowling alley. And then the FBI got involved after the 14-year-old girl was abducted. So they get involved in the case, in Amber's case, and they want to see if we have the timesheets of Hescock's for that day. And luckily, we still had him, and he wasn't at work. He was hunting, and he actually did kill an animal. He tagged an animal that weekend, or that week, whenever it was. But I do believe he took her.
To be clear, Audra is far from the only person to believe this. As she mentioned, the FBI has explored the possible connection, and it is widely reported on. Here's Sergeant Lovell discussing this theory as well as the possible connection to Stephanie Crane.
There were a lot of things that just sort of lined up that pointed towards Amber's case as well.
Right.
And I think over the last couple decades, whatever other suspects were out there, our detectives, the different detectives that have had this over the years, because it's remained active. I think they've done a good job in backtracking anybody else that could be a suspect, any other names and people that come up. But the most likely thing keeps pointing back to Mark Hescock. And so there's just most of this case is, most all of the information we've ever got has been vetted, and up to that point, we've just never been able to finish connecting that last piece and confirming it was him or not him or someone else.
Wasn't he also possibly tied to Stephanie Crane in Chalice?
Yeah, my involvement in those things hasn't been a whole lot other than working for the same agency that's vetting a lot of that. But I do know that there were similarities in places he had been, things he had done that could have lined up with that case up in Chalice. And that was, a decade or so earlier, 93, I think. So just less than 10 years earlier. So I don't know that case is still active, in Custer County. I don't know is that last dot's ever been connected there as well. So you've got two cases with two still missing people at almost at the same point that you just can't quite, you haven't found them yet, and we haven't quite connected that last piece.
What they did to your family, you're lucky to make it out alive.
Streaming on Peacock.
These men are going to come after me. Taking them out is my only chance.
Put a bullet in her head.
From the co-creator of Ozark.
Looks like a family was running drugs.
Execution-style killing is rare for the Keys. And it leads on who they might have been running for.
The cartel killed my family. I'm gonna kill them. All of them.
MIA. Streaming now. Only on Peacock.
Over the years, Amber's family has seen many sets of human remains recovered that authorities thought may belong to Amber, but ultimately didn't. A body wrapped in a tarp found near a campground, remains found 12 miles east of Idaho Falls by someone searching for better cell reception. Authorities also chased a tip from a psychic in 2003. They said Amber was in a nearby body of water, but all they found was the skeleton of a beaver, underwear, a shoe, a towel, and a bracelet. Nothing was ever connected to Amber. Through all the ups and downs, through all the heartache, Amber's family has worked hard to further her case and her legacy. Through their efforts, the then governor of Idaho, James Risch, declared September 14th to be Missing Persons Day in 2006. Amber is also featured as the 9 of clubs in the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office cold case playing card deck, which has been distributed to prisons in the area. Even as recently as 2023, there were more searches conducted for Amber. They brought out a team of cadaver dogs, but nothing was found. As of 2024, Andra says they are now focused on the High C area again, near where Hescock died. On September 14th, 2024, the 23rd anniversary of Amber's disappearance, a memorial was held in front of the Bonneville County Courthouse to remember Amber and to bring awareness to other cases. There, a proclamation signed by the mayor of Idaho Falls and the Bonneville County Commissioners was read, recognizing the significance of this day and the cases that remain open and active. Andra thinks it's extremely possible that someone out there may have information to give her family more answers about what happened to Amber. Here's what she has to say to anyone who may have that information.
I would desperately plead with them to go to the police and let them know. It's been long enough. And if the man that we believed took her, he's not here anymore. So he can't do anything to him. And if they weren't in it with him, then they're not going to go to jail. Yeah. I just plead and beg for them to go to the police. I don't like the word closure because it never really. You still have questions of why and how and where, and in finding her, it would give me peace in my soul and my family peace.
That brings me right to our call to action. This year marks 24 years since Amber went missing. Amber's family and Sergeant Lovell are hopeful that there will be more answers someday. Lovell specifically has discussed the immense advances in technology that are leading to case solves every single day. He also believes that keeping her case in the public eye may be another way to see a potential solve.
I think there's a good chance someone may have a piece of information that they don't realize is significant that could be significant later. And what I know from, tips and information that comes to the sheriff's office is, you know, someone sees a story about this case or reads about it on the internet, or this yearly anniversary comes around and we put a release out and someone says, I was around there and this, and I remember this thing happened, or I saw this, and they'll let us know about it. And we'll take that and go vet it as best as we can. And at least, try to put that on the list and compare to what we have and see if that is anything remotely helpful. It may not be right now, but tomorrow it might be. Tomorrow it might be the thing that makes all the difference.
So please share Amber's case. Like Sergeant Lovell said, this case could be cracked open by just one person seeing this story, remembering something, and reporting it to authorities. As a reminder, Amber Shawnell Hoopes was 20 years old when she went missing from her home in Idaho Falls, Idaho, in the early morning hours of September 14th, 2001. She is white, about 5'5", with brown hair and brown eyes, and she weighed approximately 140 pounds when she went missing. She also has vitiligo, with some white-colored spots on her upper left arm and left leg. She was last seen wearing a white t-shirt, gray boxer shorts, and a knee-length terry cloth robe. Amber's case is still open and active. If you have any information, please contact the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office at 208-529-1200. Tips can also be submitted anonymously through East Idaho Crime Stoppers at ifcrime.org. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Voices for Justice is hosted and produced by me, Sarah Turney, and is a Voices for Justice media original. If you love what we do here, please don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show in your podcast player. It's an easy and free way to help us and help more people find these cases in need of justice. Welcome to the Secret After Show. The studio door is open and our emotional support puppies, Heber and Popcorn, are in the room. Let's go into this case. There's not a lot out there, and it hasn't gotten a ton of coverage, so I tried to put absolutely everything I had into that episode. But of course, there were some things that I didn't think were appropriate to put in the main feed, which is the first thing I want to talk about. It's the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office, thinking Amber was off just having fun, that she'd be back, which I've talked about this a million times. I get it. I hate it. I get it. I don't get it. I hate it. We know what this is. But what I wanted to bring your attention to, just something that I thought was kind of nice, was that they post about Amber on their Facebook page all the time. And they, most often in these posts, report that it was out of character for Amber. Now, it may seem like the smallest thing, like so small, but I just think it's nice that they acknowledge this now instead of, shying away from it. And I will say that I think these small acts of validation for these families can go a long way. I also think and hope that it'll help in just future cases, hopefully to instill, some type of urgency moving forward. I don't know. Like I said, it was just something nice that I saw on their Facebook post that didn't feel appropriate for the main episode. It's just, I don't know. I guess as a family of a missing person, that really struck me. It was just nice to see that validation for them. Next on my list, I did want to talk about like the 9/11 obstacles, jumping through hoops to get this aerial support for the searches. It was a unique aspect that I feel like we might have addressed in one other episode, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. I don't know. It was interesting to me. It's things like that I don't automatically think of. And then when I started reading it in some of the reporting, I was like, that actually makes so much sense. Um, with so many flights being grounded and them looking at these international pen pals, them trying to get, planes in the air to search for Amber. It's just an interesting aspect that I felt was compelling to address in the episode. On my list, I also have Audra's statement about closure, how she doesn't like the word, that they have more questions that they want answers to. And I just wanted to highlight that. It's something that I do see often when talking about families. It's interesting. I think that there's kind of this dichotomy between families and true crime, people impacted directly by true crime, and the true crime audience sometimes, where we see words like justice and closure mean very different things. I'm often told, I'm so sorry you never got justice for your sister. And that's just not how I see it. I think justice comes in so many different forms. And I also think, to Audra's point, like closure, that also comes in so many different forms. And I think every family has their own journey with justice and with closure. And I know I've talked about it, a few times, probably a lot on this podcast, but I think it's important to continue speaking about that, when you tell a family, I'm sorry you don't have closure, I'm sorry you don't have justice, they may not feel that way, that those definitions may be different. So I guess that's all I was trying to say there. I just always try to highlight those things. And Audra was highlighted so much in this episode because I think it just kind of brings you closer. I think it brings you as the listener closer to the case. This is real. Amber's a real person who, her family has been deeply impacted by. So I really hope that came through. On to media discrepancies. Not really. I didn't see like a ton in this. There were some, mostly around the details of the 14-year-old who escaped Hescock. Was she with her sister? Was she with multiple siblings? I addressed in the episode. I will say that most official reporting says sister, but it was the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office that kept saying siblings. So I just decided to put it all out there and you guys can decide for yourselves. But again, overall, solid reporting, which I've been saying so much lately. I am so pleasantly surprised and happy I'm so pleasantly happy. That totally makes sense. You guys know what I mean. It's nice. Lately, it's been like, oh, not a lot of media discrepancies, and I love to see it. I was like, should I just like make media discrepancies an optional topic here? I don't know. TBD, because I'm sure I'm going to come across some 1-hour special about some case where I'm going to want to talk for like 15 minutes about the discrepancies. So I think for now, we'll just leave it. But as always, let me know what you think. I do often hear feedback about the media discrepancies section. You guys seem to really like it, so I do want to keep it. I think it's important to talk about. And I also I like to give credit where credit is due. Oh my gosh, my chair is so loud. When these reporters, seem to do a good job across the board, I just want to acknowledge it. I will say, though, I had to dig deep to find information about this phone, about the truck phone, about the bag phone. It was extremely hard to find. So it's not really a discrepancy. There's just some things in some cases where I'm like, why isn't everyone reporting on this? So there is that. I will add that. But now let's go on to our heroes of the episode. I've got a few, you guys. First is Kathleen, the grandmother, for just checking, for taking the time to see where Amber was, despite, probably being a little groggy, waking up in the middle of the night. It did greatly establish the timeline, I think, and it led to them finding the truck while it was still warm. So shout out to Grandma Kathleen for being on it. Next, I have Nate Eaton from the East Idaho News. If you guys remember my episodes about Dior Kunz, his reporting was just extremely valuable. And just like this episode, his reporting was extremely valuable. And really not just like reporting on the facts, but he does these long, in-depth interviews with the major players in these cases. And it's just so helpful. Like, when I'm reading between sources about, exactly how Kathleen woke up and found that Amber was gone, sometimes they're not as clear. They're a little bit short, right? And then you have Audra just like talking about it in detail and just helps clarify things so much. So hero Nate Eaton for doing these very in-depth interviews that just gives us a better look into these cases. Next, I have Audra. Obviously, Audra the investigator. Just fantastic. I mean, she is the public face of this case, which is not easy. She was up at 4 a.m. getting this phone call, making flyers. She's still out there doing interviews. So Audra also makes a hero of this episode. Last but not least, I would be remiss if I did not include Jennifer, the 14-year-old girl who broke free, led the police to Hescock, and very likely prevented another young person, another woman most likely, from being, assaulted, abducted, whatever this man had been doing. So her name is out there, but in most sources, they don't report on it. And, if she wants to stay anonymous, which, I haven't found any, reports of her telling her story directly. I may have missed them. Please let me know if I did. But I haven't found any. It seems like she wants to stay anonymous, so I want to try to keep it that way. But Jennifer, you know who you are, and you do make a hero of this episode. Now let's move on to our segment of hope. It's another Arizona case. I can't help it. I keep seeing them. But this did get international coverage. I've been seeing it everywhere because it's absolutely amazing. It's stunning. It's one of those cases that I love to talk about because I just know that so many people were like, that'll never happen. They'll never be found. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So this is from Newsweek from this month, September 2025, from Jenna Sundell. And the title reads, Missing Daughters of Woman Murdered 36 Years Ago Found Alive. Oh, you guys. Okay, I'm going to try not to get emotional. The article reads, the daughters of Marina Ramos, a woman killed in Arizona in 1989, have been found alive nearly 36 years after they were abandoned as infants in a California park, according to the Mojave County Sheriff's Office. Investigators say the last time that Ramos was seen, she was in possession of her two daughters, 2-month-old Jasmine and 14-month-old Elizabeth. Officials said the daughters were found utilizing DNA technology. Oh, I'm getting so emotional. Sorry, they're so little. They're so little. Okay, sorry, I composed myself, or I'm trying to. This is an ongoing investigation, but essentially, this is what happened. The article says, on December 12th, 1989, a woman was found on Old Temple Bar Road in Mojave County, Arizona, about 50 miles south of Las Vegas. The woman had been stabbed multiple times and left nude. Attempts to identify the woman were unsuccessful at the time, but detectives were able to obtain a DNA profile from the victim and enter it into a national DNA database. Why it took so long? Let's just go on. In 2022, the victim's fingerprints were submitted to the National Missing and Unidentified Person System, NamUs, resulting in a match to Maria Ortiz in Bakersfield, California. The prints were obtained from an arrest for shoplifting. Officials spoke to an individual who said she did not know Ortiz, but her cousin, Maria Ramos, had been missing since 1989. Investigators say Maria Ortiz was an alias used by Marina Ramos. It says, since 2023, the Mojave County Sheriff's Office has tried to obtain information about Ramos and her missing children using press releases, social media, and TV. Family members of Ramos provided DNA to investigators, which was entered into CODIS, and completed commercial DNA kits. In August, investigators located a woman with a high DNA match. She told officials that she and her sister were abandoned in a park in Oxnard, California in December 1989. Further testing confirmed that the women were Elizabeth and Jasmine Ramos, daughters of Marina Ramos. According to the Oxnard Police Department report, a passerby heard crying from in a park bathroom. He asked a woman to check the bathroom, where she found 2 infants abandoned on the floor. Child Protective Services placed the girls into foster care, and they were later adopted by a couple in Ventura County. The Mojave County Sheriff's Office has not yet identified who killed Marina Ramos. A witness in the area told officials that they saw the children with a woman and 2 men at the park. The woman and men were described as Hispanic. The witness said the woman was wearing a long red skirt, and white boots. Anyone with information on this incident is asked to contact the Sheriff's Office at 928-753-0753. I mean, this makes our segment of hope for obvious reasons, and, I do just have to say, I can't even imagine what these now women are going through. Learning this new reality of your life, having to, kind of rewrite your own history is awful. And that has to be incredibly difficult, and I'm sending so much love to them, but I think it makes our segment of hope because I feel like so often when we see cases like this, we've covered a handful of cases where a mother goes missing, or a mother is killed, I should say, and then the child goes missing, and it's hard because I see those comments, those kids aren't alive, that kid isn't alive, whatever it might be. There's just so much skepticism, and I understand why, but I am someone who always tries to keep that hope alive. We have to. What's the point of me doing this podcast if there's no hope for these cases? What's the point of us coming up, showing up, listening every single week if there's no hope for these cases, if there's no hope that there can be some type of resolution, some type of positive outcome? And that's exactly what this case showed. Those 2 babies, now these 2 women are alive. It is just, it feels like a miracle. It's amazing, and that's why it makes our segment of hope, because even in the darkest of cases, even when there is so much doubt, there's so much negativity, there's so little room for that light, so little room to believe, that there could be something positive, that it's not the worst case scenario, I should say. We have cases like this. We have, some type of segment of hope every single week showing that there can be better resolutions than what we may have first thought. So I know that was really rambly. I hope it made sense. This one just struck my heart in a certain way. But that's why it makes our segment of hope. And thank you. I love you. And I'll talk to you next time.